My name's Aidan McCarty, and I'm the Heritage Program Manager, or archaeologist, on the Dakota Prairie Grasslands. On the Dakota Prairie Grasslands, which encompasses all the grasslands in North Dakota and a little chunk of South Dakota, we actually have a little over 3,500 known sites. That's what we know about. On the Sheyenne National Grassland, though, it's a little bit different for a couple of reasons. It's one of the least studied portions of the state, and we actually currently have about 50 known archaeological sites on the Sheyenne National Grassland, so far fewer. The Cheyenne's different than the rest of the grasslands for a couple of reasons. A lot of that's how the grasslands formed here. The landforms here, generally the result of one large lake that formed somewhere around 11,000 years ago and continued to about 9,000 years ago. During that time period, it deposited a ton of sediment. Then after that lake sort of evaporated away, the glaciers retreated, the glacial melt stopped. The grasslands were pretty dynamic. It went through periods of dry and then wet. During those dry periods, it got really sandy and actually resulted in a lot of the sand dunes that you see here. During those wet periods, things were more stable. So we see archaeological resources that date typically around 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. So the oldest site types that you would typically find in North Dakota would be Paleo-Indian sites. Those can date back as far as 10,000 to 11,000 years before present. Those are possible around here, but as I mentioned before, lake deposits likely buried those. They would be very deep. They have been identified in southeastern North Dakota. We have not identified any on the grassland here. There are very few reasons why we would dig that deep except for research. And yeah, so it could be as old as that. We do find things 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. Like I said, that's fairly common. And then again, turn of the century, 19th to 20th century, when homesteading was pretty common. A lot of the sites that we have here are actually evidence of homesteading, so Europeans coming in. Those are the most common types of sites. Because preservation isn't great in some parts of the grassland, a lot of what we find are lithic scatters, cultural material scatters. Lithic materials hold up pretty well, they don't degrade. Lithic scatters are typically just the remains of people processing lithic or stone materials. So flint knapping, chip stone, same thing. People are taking larger pieces of stone and reducing it down into usable tools. And it's kind of the most common thing that we find around here. Regarding the pre-European contact, then once we have the European contact, we see mostly homesteads and farmsteads. Household waste, both architectural and domestic debris. Domestic being the remains of jars, bottles, dinnerware, things like that. The architectural material would be the remains of the building structures and objects. So glass, brick, wood. Typically, when we're doing the archaeological work for the Forest Service, a lot of what drives the archaeology that we do would be proposed ground disturbing projects. Those ground disturbing projects typically warrant a survey. We don't have as many of those on the Sheyenne National Grassland. So when somebody proposes an action or an undertaking on the national grassland, prior to them implementing that, we would conduct a survey to ensure that we've identified cultural resources and then manage them properly.